Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. Welcome, everybody, to PBJamz. Music and picture books, what a perfect sandwich. Squish them all together, what a yummy snack. PBJamz, yummy books and music. PBJamz, reading, writing, teaching. PBJamz, what a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time. PBJamz, songish books and bookish songs. Tips for music teachers, interviews and book reviews. A little singing and dancing.
Whenever you're joining us for PBJamz, we're so glad you're here. Here today with Patrick Adams, who is not only a picture book writer, but also a musician and has traveled so many cool places, which informs the books that he writes and the music that he makes, and also juggling a podcast where he highlights musicians. So I think Patrick and I were kind of on the same wavelength, probably around the same time as we started these two endeavors. So it's kind of fun to get to chat with him a little bit about his books and his music and his podcast. So welcome, Patrick. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on, and hello, everyone.
All right. So talk to us a little bit about your well, I don't know, let's start with the podcast, because I don't want to forget that. So talk to us a little bit about how that came about and what you do with the podcast.
Sure. So last year, there's this radio station called Jump 105.3, and I reached out to them to see how I could support them, because they're a radio station out of Pittsburgh that plays children's music and has children's programming, and so that sounds like something that I really wanted to get behind and support. So I reached out to them. I became a sponsor for them, and as part of that, I got to put together a couple of shows, hour-long shows. And so the first couple of shows that I put together were about my books and music. So my 16-year-old daughter at the time was visiting me, and so we put a show together where we read excerpts from all the books that had been released in one of the series, and then we played a song that was associated with it.
Yep.
So that became known as the Amazing Lisa Show, and that's the first show that I had play on that radio station. And then I put another one together for my other book series, which is Rhythm's World. And they also have, songs associated with them as well, which I'll talk about. But so that was called Rhythm Mania. So those first two shows, they were so much fun to make. And so I got to talking with Jump 105.3 about, a recurring kind of show. And I'd had the idea to do a podcast for a while. I was just never quite sure what to do with the podcast. But then, as I was thinking about it, it's like, there are so many other children's musicians who make such interesting, fun, educational, just they're so talented and they make great music. So I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe since this, was going to air on Jump 105.3, can I get some of these artists on my podcast and, talk about their experience, how they got into making music for kids, and then highlight or spotlight a song. So that was kind of my thought and idea as far as a format. So I wanted to keep it, to a manageable length so I could get several episodes into an hour-long program.
Right.
So I was targeting like 15 minutes. So, I got everything sort of structurally set up. It's like, all right, now it's make or break time. Let's see who's interested. And the first post I put out there in the KindieRock Facebook group, within, I would say, 5 or 6 hours, I already had 25 appointments.
Wow.
Like, okay, this might be an idea that resonates. Yeah. And so from there, I went ahead and set up like a whole season. It was 3 months worth of interviews, and I really was aggressive in how many I had scheduled. So I just started doing the interviews and getting the process down of creating the podcast, and all of season 1. So you have an artist, you have their story, a song feature, so they tell the story about the song first, Then I play the song, and then we do a wrap up where they can tell everybody where they can download that song and find them and connect with them.
Mhm.
So that season one, I think I had 44 different children's artists
Wow.
that were on the show, and if they talked about multiple songs, I created multiple episodes.
Right.
So I ended up in that season releasing 113 podcast episodes.
Man.
So when I got to season two, which I did from January to March of this year, I decided to expand out a little bit because I really wanted to get some of these onto YouTube. So I created a second option. They could do the song feature, but they could also do a live performance. So, and if they chose the live performance, obviously on a Zoom. So I would, the Zoom was being recorded anyway. So I would take that video recording and create a YouTube episode out of it, in addition to the regular podcast episode.
Right.
And so, that got a lot of interest as well. And I think I ended up with over 20 people that did the live performances. And then just a couple of other ideas that came out, like album features. So, just taking an album and highlighting several songs from that album,
Mhm.
to music video features, where again, we were
Right.
doing the video, but instead of live performance, they wanted to feature a video. So,
Oh,
from season one to season two, it's expanded, just in the offerings, format, styles. It's been a lot of fun. And, I think so far I've probably had close to 80 artists on the show. And it's been a blast getting to know them,
yeah.
getting to learn about their experiences. I think a lot of people kind of get into kindie music the same way. It's after they have kids of their own, and
Right.
they're starting to listen to other music. It's like, well, just make music they can listen to as well. And
Yeah.
so that's how a lot of them get into it.
That's awesome. That's fabulous. Yeah, I hear a lot of similar takeaways and origin stories with a lot with PBJamz. So really fun. What a great podcast. And it's a lot of fun to get to know other people, other artists, and how they make their music, or in my case, how they write their books and sometimes make music as well. So it's been really fun. So for you, which came first, the books or the music?
The books.
The books came first.
The books came first. Yep.
And those were inspired by your daughters, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So there's two series. So I have 5 kids, and
Okay.
there's 3 older kids from my first marriage. So the Amazing Lisa series, which is a book series about 3 kids who, modeled after my older 3,
Okay.
who travel the world with a magical stuffed toy that my daughter has. And this is based on an actual stuffed animal that my daughter had. Stuffed animal's name was Lisa, and she
Okay.
would always create these, it was like Lisa was alive, and she
Uh-huh.
would create these really, wild scenarios, and her and Lisa would have adventures. So, I just took that, combined it with my love of travel. And I was like, okay, these 3 kids and this magical stuffed animal, they're going to travel the world. They're going to have adventures. And at the same time, it was an opportunity to teach kids about, things in other countries. What are
Right.
some cool things to see? And what are maybe one or two cultural things that I can weave into the book, and
Yeah.
things like that. So it all started with Lisa Goes to England. That was my first book. And so the whole series kind of started there. When I came up with that first one, I already had an idea for like another 10 books after that. So
Right.
this is a constant work in progress, and it's actually a story arc. So
Uh-huh.
the character of Amazing Lisa, the magical stuffed toy, it's not really touched on at the very beginning. It's like, okay, where did this magical toy come from? So as I'm, writing more books in the series, I begin to, kind of weave that in a little bit.
Uh-huh. Get some little clues about the background.
Yeah.
Love it. And then what about the rhythm and lyric series following that? Where'd that come from?
Yeah. So so I have 2 younger daughters. One is rhythm, one is lyric. Their mother is a musician as well. So
Okay.
our children naturally are going to have musical names.
Right.
Um, but our daughter Rhythm, she has kind of a story with her. She was a premature baby, and she almost didn't make it. So, she was born right at about 7 months.
Wow.
And so she had to be intubated. And as part of the birth, which, the mother almost lost her life as well, but, they had to revive her. And they were able to, but what we didn't know at the time was there was some oxygen deprivation that happened to the brain. So part of the area around her ventricles, some of those brain cells died, and we didn't know that at the time. She developed normally for about the first 7 to 8 months, um, but then she began having seizures. And the uh, the term, I guess, that she was diagnosed with was infantile spasms, which are a particularly insidious form of epilepsy. So, we weren't sure about, her future and what was going to happen, what sort of medicine she would need to be on, how long these seizures were going to go on, how it would affect her development and so forth. So, um, it was a rough beginning to her life. But, even before I found out about her seizures, I wrote a book, tailored to a younger audience. And I guess I should clarify, Amazing Lisa is targeted to, slightly more than beginning readers. So maybe ages 4 to 8. There's a little more text to it. But the rhythm series, these are for very beginning readers. So much less text, more focus on the pictures.
Okay.
So I had written this book called The World of Rhythm. And what it was just Rhythm, imagining her, because I think she was, not even a year old at the time, but imagining her as a little bit older, playing all these musical instruments. So that's what the book is. There's 20 different illustrations of Rhythm playing various instruments. So not long after that, we she began having the seizures, and so we got into her um, medical appointments and, all these things just to try and get the seizures to stop because they were impacting her development.
All right.
So then that kind of informed how I approached the Rhythm series going forward. I didn't necessarily want to write, you know, sad books about the medical experiences we were having with her, but I wanted to write more hopeful books of she's going to get through this. She's a fighter. She's, going to take these early challenges and she's going to beat them. So the books I wrote, um, I would integrate a little bit about the kind of things that she was experiencing, like, having therapy and, with people sort of praying for her, to get better and stuff like that. But I didn't make it the focus. So the second book in that series was called Rhythm's Fantastic Friends. And so that was kind of a focus on professions and how they're important to a child. So, things like doctors, nurses, um, teachers, people, they're important to kids, and they are truly some of the kids' best friends. So I wanted to make sure that, I spotlighted them. You don't necessarily always think about that, but they are very important in a child's life.
Yeah.
So one of the professions I highlighted in there was therapists, and the image was of Rhythm getting a kind of therapy that she got.
Gotcha.
So and from there, the next couple of books, I went right back to the travel theme. So there was kind of a sub series in that one called Rhythm's World Tour. So
Okay.
I'm spotlighting all of the continents, and then there's going to be the final book is going to be about islands. So,
Okay.
island nations like Australia, New Zealand, and
Yep.
Iceland, and some of these other places. So, um, and then after the second Rhythm's World Tour book, we had our daughter Lyric. So, of course, I have to weave Lyric now into the
Of
mix. So
course.
the fifth book in the Rhythm's World series was Rhythm Meets Lyric. So it's all about the joys of welcoming a new sibling into the family.
Awesome. Awesome. How fun. Nice to have, good for the kids to see themselves represented so beautifully and fun and having all those adventures. That's fabulous. Um so talk to us a little bit about the music and how that came into play along with the books.
Yep. Yeah. So as part of what I was doing with the books initially, to try and create marketing sort of tools, I was making book trailers. And so, with each of the trailer, they were like a minute long, but I would attach some music to it. that was typically royalty-free music and stuff like that. But I
Right.
just got this idea back in 2018. I wanted to have a song that went with like the Amazing Lisa book series. And so I I started just like writing some lyrics to a song and trying to imagine what the song might sound like. But I had no idea how to make one. I hadn't delved into it at that point. But I connected with, and it was almost like really fortuitous timing. Another singer named Annie Lynn reached out to me on Twitter, and I think you've
We do. We're good
yeah.
friends, Annie and I. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Annie's great. So,
Yeah.
I think she at the time was really interested in working with, children's book authors
Uh,
to add a musical element to it. So I was like, oh, okay, this is perfect timing. This is meant to be.
yeah.
So, um, I, funny story, the original lyrics that I sent to Annie after we started working together, I think I might have had like 8 or 9 verses of
Oh, wow.
music.
Right.
And so Annie said, "Well, unless you want the song to be 20 minutes long, let's cut some of these verses." So I think her and I worked together to. I kind of shaped the verses, which were really just around the story itself of Amazing Lisa, and we touched on some of the places she had already been to. But Annie put together the music, and she added her touches,
Yep.
in the chorus and in some other spots in the song, and that song became Amazing Lisa Rocks. So that was the first song we put together, and just seeing a song with your name attached to it, and in something that you worked on and helped create, that was just so much fun, and it was such a great experience. Um, so I let that sit for a while before I went back to music, and then I said, okay, now I need one for Rhythms World.
Right.
So I wrote the lyrics full on to Rhythms World, and understanding now how to write a song and
Right.
how to write it, not to make it too long. Um, I still made it 3 verses long, but still,
Yeah.
there was a
Yeah.
lot to write about.
Of course.
Um, and so I engaged a couple, a German couple, to who the wife was, she had a very childlike voice, and thought, okay, this is perfect. This is perfect for this song. And the husband was a musician. So
Okay.
at this point, I wasn't creating any of the music. I was merely writing the songs.
Okay.
Um, and so I worked with them, and they came up with the song Rhythms World. And the first version they sent back to me was like, okay, no, not exactly what I wanted. I had this idea for the chorus.
Hmm.
So for the first time, I sent something back to them where I actually sang the chorus of the song how I wanted it to go.
Right.
And then they translated it into that, and it came back and it sounded just the way I wanted it. So
Perfect.
at that point, okay, I'm kind of putting together the chops. I
Yep.
know now how to write a song, how to sort of envision the chorus and the verses, and
Yeah.
if there's a bridge or whatever. So uh the next idea is like, all right, now I've got songs for each of the series. Now I want to write a song for each book.
Mhm.
So that became my pandemic project.
Okay.
As soon
Perfect
as we
project.
shut down, yep.
Yep.
And I think I might have started writing the songs before the pandemic hit, but
Mhm.
I just took each of the books, and there were 10 at the time, and I began writing songs which kind of reflected the story that happened in the book.
Okay.
um, and for the music, I really love using technology. I'm a huge fan of GarageBand.
Yeah.
It's a great way to piece together songs, and grab some good loops and stuff like that. We have some instruments around here, so we can create our own loops sometimes, but
Okay.
record it and it goes right into GarageBand.
Uh-huh.
So I found that was a great way, and I really got to understand that tool, how it works, and I just began putting music together for each of the songs. And before I knew it, I had all of the music for all of the 10 new songs that I was writing, and it didn't take me any time at all to write the lyrics, because the lyrics were just the story of the book.
Right.
And it's like, okay, now I have to decide on the vocals. Are my vocals going to be okay? I hadn't really put my voice to music. Um, so I ended up meeting a woman in England named Sarah Elizabeth, And I reached out to her because the first book, Lisa Goes to England, the song I wrote for that is called Tea with the Queen.
Right.
And I wanted a distinctly British voice
Sure.
to work with me on the music. So she knocked it out of the park. I did a vocal demo. I sent it to her, and what she sent back to me was just outstanding. So
Nice.
in the end, I ended up working with her on several of the songs from the album. But I did the vocals for the song North America.
Okay.
So the first album was less me vocally, but all me musically.
Okay.
So
Uh-huh.
again, an evolution. I'm getting used to it, and getting the songwriting down. Now I did all the music. Now it's time. Okay, I got to start finding my voice and stuff like that. So um, with my newest album, most of the vocals are now me. There's a couple of songs where Sarah and I duetted, and there's one where she did the vocals, and then I did another collaboration with some fellow Kindie artists named EVT Kids. So yeah, so it's all an evolution. I love it. The new album will be out June 3rd. I'm not sure when this show is going to air, but it's probably going to be before June 3rd, I think,
Yep.
right?
It is. Yep.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And the first single from that is going to be released this coming week. It's called Travel Time. And this album the theme is travel. And it's travel through the eyes of kids of all ages. So there might be some songs where I'm singing it from the perspective of a very young child.
Mhm.
There's others where it's from the perspective of an older child, like maybe into their teens or so forth. So
Uh-huh.
just a variety. And is I love travel anyway. So again, very easy to write and get behind and sort of envision what I want from it.
Yeah, I think the older we get, like our passions really come to the surface, and it's so cool to find those projects and those places, which is PBJamz for me right now, where all those things that you love. For you, it's the travel and the music and the writing and the family, like all those things intersect with your writing and your music and your podcast. And for me, it's been the teaching and the writing and the music and trying to bring all those people together and all those ideas together. And it's just so fun and rewarding, I think, when we find those places where our passions all intersect, and we find a really good place. Which do you think is harder for you? Is it harder to do the stories or the music?
So I think it's a little harder to do the stories.
Okay.
I've found with the music, it takes less time to create. I think once an idea, and sometimes I just get hit with an idea for a song,
Uh-huh.
and like the chorus just enters my head. And
Yep.
so there was one or two songs on my new album where I had knocked out the music, the vocals, the lyrics, all of it in a day. It
Wow.
just hit me. And it's a little longer and more detailed. You really have to think through the story on a book, especially the Amazing Lisa books. With the Rhythms World books, they're a little more themed. So that's a little easier to I'd have to know what illustrations that I'm presenting, and then the text kind of falls in line. With the Amazing Lisa books, which are a little more story driven, those take a little bit longer, usually a good month or two, kind of thinking through that and how I want the story to sort of unfold. I'm a planner, so I like
Mhm.
will have like the scenes planned in the book, and then the story kind of comes in, and the dialogue and things like that, based around that outline. So I think the books are a little uh, more in depth for me to pull together. So I would think they're a little more difficult, but nonetheless rewarding.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And since your songs are based on the books, you've already done most of the legwork for that piece, and you're kind of condensing that into the information for the song. So that makes sense that it would be a little bit tougher to crank out the books, but then you've got most of the work done as far as the words, the lyrics and stuff. That makes sense. So talk to us a little bit about your publishing journey. Did you want to do so you've self-published, is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And so was that always your dream? Like, did you ever entertain traditional publishing, or you just wanted control, and you talk to us a little bit about that decision and how that came about?
Yeah. So I did some research on that,
Mhm.
and would have happily pitched it to an agency, but I had a conversation with a coworker, like a couple of years back that always kind of stuck in my head. And they had published a project management book,
Hmm.
and it was published through a publishing house. Now, I don't know how all publishing houses work,
Right.
but what he told me was the publishing house stopped producing their book.
Mm.
And for him to want, and his partner, to get that book back, they had to buy the rights back to the book
Ah,
that they created.
gotcha.
Um, but I understand the value, of having a big, publishing house, with the marketing and
Mhm.
just the general availability and acceptance, I think, of books. But I had to make that decision, and it really all came around to control of the story.
Right.
And so with that, I knew what I had planned. I knew the journey that I had planned with, especially the Amazing Lisa series, and I just wanted to control it, and I wanted to control the how it unfolded and how the story unfolded, how the characters developed, and all of that. So I decided to go the self-publishing route, and that for that first book was a big learning experience.
Of course. Yeah.
Um, but they had some amazing tools out there for people who wanted to go do it. There was something called Create Space, which you could get all of the pieces and parts of your book pulled together, and they would ensure that you had a quality cover, that your interior met all of the standards, and then they would make sure that your book was available in big booksellers like Amazon, Books a Million, Barnes and Noble, things like that.
Right.
Well, book so Create Space eventually became, or it was bought out. I'm really not sure how it happened, but Amazon,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Kindle Direct Publishing. So, they have the ability now through Amazon KDP to create ebooks, to create paperbacks, and I think they just introduced a hardcover option. Um, so, so yeah, so the tool became, well, once I learned how to do it, and got that first book out there. I did the same for my second book and third book. And by that time, I'd gotten so used to the process that I was like, okay, well, if anyone else is interested, that they're just starting um, to do this. So I kind of put it out there like, hey, you need help publishing.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually I did work with somebody to help get their book self-published.
Awesome.
So I kind of offered up my services. I kind of knew now what everybody was looking for, how it had to
Yeah.
be formatted, and stuff like that. So there's an author's name is Alexandria Rizik, and the book is called Chocolate Milk. And
Uh,
with that, that became the first book other than my own that I actually published through Patrick Adams Books.
nice.
So so that was fun. That was a great experience. And it's like, okay, I could do something with this. And, I haven't gone back to the well that much. I have helped another author kind of get her book reformatted with some changes and published back out there. But that's always an option for anyone who needs some help. I do offer that service on my website. But
Awesome.
um, so I completely understand the self-publishing journey. I
Mhm.
would tell anybody who asks, here's the challenges you're going to face.
Right.
Um, I don't have a lot of extra money for marketing budget. I wish I
Yeah.
did, but that's the challenge you're going to face, and so you really got to hustle.
Yeah. 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 For sure. So, what do you think? When kids come to your books and your music, what is the big takeaway that you hope they get from it?
Yeah. So with the books, especially, I want them to enjoy the story, but I also want them to learn a few things.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've done 6 Amazing Lisa books now. So England, France, Australia, India, Japan, and Brazil. Uh, so if they've never traveled, if they want to know something about any of these places, I always try to sneak in at least two or three, really cool places in those countries. Um, and then a little bit about the language. So one of the fun elements of the Amazing Lisa character is that she knows all the world's languages somehow, some way. And
Right.
so that's become a story device where the kids are like, wait a minute, you know all of the languages? How?
Right.
Yeah, so introducing the fact that there's different languages, and just different sort of cultural things. So as I move forward with the other countries I have planned, I always write the story and think of the illustrations with that in mind. So an educational experience for sure, and that's the same with the Rhythms World books.
Mhm.
Each of those is focused on something that inevitably is going to teach kids a little bit about something, like musical instruments. Hey, here's 20 different kinds of musical instruments that you can play.
Yeah.
With professions, here's 20 different types of professions that as a child you'll meet,
Mhm.
maybe at some point. um, and I know a lot of kids can relate to welcoming a new sibling into the family. And
Yeah,
um, you
absolutely.
know I have several more of those books planned as well, with different kinds of topics. Sports is one that I'm
Mhm.
working on.
Yep.
Rhythm and lyric play sports, and other really cool, fun things I think that would resonate with younger readers.
Awesome. So you've mentioned a little bit about this. So I know you have an album coming up, and this episode is going to air on the 12th of this month, actually. So it's coming up really soon. So tell us maybe a little bit more about the album or other things that you have coming down the pike and when we can expect those.
Sure. So this album, it's a bit different than my first. My first album was all themed on my books. So Amazing World, which was the first album, every song ties to a book, and then there's two songs, Amazing Lisa Rocks and Rhythms World, that ties the series. So that was the focus of that album. This is a little more open in terms of the theme is travel, but it's all different kinds of travel. So
Hmm.
this album has 17 songs, and the first song, which is actually the single Travel Time, is going to be out the day after the podcast airs. So um, that's going to be the lead off single, but that song kind of sets the stage for the rest of the album, where I get into just different ways to travel, or different
Right.
things you can see. So there's a song about taking a road trip, and there's
Mm.
songs about riding your bike, uh, going on a cruise, or uh, taking a boat ride.
Mhm.
Just many different ways that going on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Um, so there's many different ways that you can travel. You can travel within your town, you can travel across the world. So it's all kind of here, and stylistically I really, um because this is much more me, and me vocally too. I found myself leaning into my influences. So again, I got into music in the 80s, so
Yep.
there's a few synths in this. And
Yep.
one of the songs, the song about a motorcycle, I incorporated a heavy metal guitar riff
Oh,
into the
fun.
song. And but then there's some others that are a little slower, but all of them are fun in their way. And like I said, I tried to imagine the songs as from the lens of a kid, whether they're a young kid or a slightly older kid. There's shared experiences that, as people that listen to the song, um, they'll get. There's a song on there about airports, and
Right.
it's just it's about the experience of everything that happens to you in an airport as you're heading to your flight.
Yeah.
So
That's a lot.
anyone that's ever been to an airport and got on a plane, they'll listen to that. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty much what
Yep.
I
He got
experienced.
that right.
But
I
um
love it. Yeah.
so yeah, so this, I'm excited to have this one out there. I think this is kind of the direction I'm going to go. I started, like I said, I did a collaboration with another Kindie artist, something I would love to do more of.
Mhm.
um just to bounce ideas and create a song together. I've thought of doing a Kindie covers album, where Kindie
Oh,
artists can do covers of fun songs from the 80s or something. Uh,
right. Right. That'd be fun. That'd be
so
super fun.
that's something I'm thinking about for my next project, but not quite sure. Doing cover songs requires a little bit of legwork, so
Yeah,
I have
understood.
to make sure it's worth it, but still it would be fun.
Yeah, it would be fun. Yeah, I'm a girl of the 80s too, so that idea rocks with me. I'd love that. Super fun. So what is one thing that you would most like if somebody said, tell us the most important thing about Patrick Adams? What do you want people to know about you, your books, and your music?
So I think the most important thing would be just the dedication and support to the Kindie community, and the just creation of great entertainment for kids and families. Like I said, there's not only am I doing it, there's so many other people that are doing it,
Yeah.
and it's such great work. And what I would love to see is that be recognized a little more in, like, the music industry itself, like maybe a couple new Grammy categories. I think there's one Grammy category for children's music, and that's best album. So maybe some equivalent to what they give out for other awards, like best song, or things like that. So it's kind of that kind of support to help that grow. But that's I think just the dedication to the Kindie community, and entertainment and quality stuff for kids and families.
Love it. That's a great mission right there. Wonderful. Well, Patrick, thank you for being here with us. Thank you, folks, for joining us on this episode of PBJamz. We're going to link all of that amazing stuff that Patrick was talking about. We're going to link it down below, so you'll be able to download his music and access his books and find his website if you're looking into self-publishing and that's the direction you want to go. All of his information will be linked up below. We're going to share that brand new single that he was talking about, Travel Time. We're going to share that with you. And so many other amazing things. I'm going to be linking up some cool activities for teachers that'll go along with Lisa Goes to Brazil, which is the latest book that Patrick has out. So we're going to be traveling to Brazil through some of those music teacher activities, as well as classroom teachers and families, things that you guys can do to go along with that book. So we hope you'll check out all of his great books and music and information, and check out his website. And just have fun with it. He's a great artist, musically and picture books. And so check all that stuff out and enjoy. And thank you for joining us today. And thanks again, Patrick, for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast.
PBJamz, what a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time.